And football is obviously loved by many, but how do we understand it from a business angle? The US has started its pro and college football seasons, and football history expert Jackson Michael joins us today to discuss the business of football and how history plays an important role in how the industry operates. Good to see you, my friend. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, good to be here. Thank you for having me.
No worries at all. Now, a lot of people think that the entertainment value of sport is how football has sort of impacted the industry in the past, but how does it sit today economically?
Well, the history of football goes in television goes back to the 1940s, and that's really what set the sport into the position it's in today. In the 1940s, NFL Commissioner Bert Bell saw the power of television coming, that new technology, and he jumped on it right away. He had the championship game on televised already in 1948, and that set the stage for what is Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, it's incredible when you look back at the history of the game. So in your work as a historian and documentarian, you talk quite a bit about the racial context of football and its history. Can you expand on that a little bit and share how that context perhaps impacts the industry and, of course, those playing professional sports today?
Yeah, in the southern United States in the 1950s and 1960s, African Americans were oppressed and had limited opportunities. Many colleges banned them, and so for a lot of them, historically black colleges and universities were the only way they could get a scholarship to play football or to get a college degree. Football gave them a very visible spotlight, especially when they turned pro and became stars at prominent positions on championship teams.
Absolutely. So can you expand on that a little bit more and perhaps share with us about the shift that we've obviously seen over the last sort of decades, all those decades, and how that has impacted those institutions financially as they move through and this change obviously evolves the game?
Yeah, as far as the colleges themselves, the HBCUs, they've been affected negatively because they, as their talent migrated to predominantly white institutions, those other colleges got the television contract money, and that helped them build their fan base and gain prominence. And the HBCUs lost prominence as a result, and they still struggle with funding to this day.
Absolutely. So what do you think are the growth areas for the industry perhaps over the next several years? We've obviously had the pandemic sort of ravage the space, but what do you foresee being maybe a bit more of an optimistic future?
Well, the NFL doesn't get ravaged economically at all. Indeed, last year in the television contract, each team made $200 million per team in the television contract. With the new television contract and the added games that there are, each team gets $350 million per team. So they increased, they grew, and now they're continuing to grow, kind of like they did in the 1940s through new technologies as they look into streaming.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh God, the sports streaming market. Can you imagine? So you run a non-for-profit, The Game Before the Money, I understand is what it's called, and it focuses on the industry and preserving its past as well. Can you share a little bit more about what the organization does, especially in relation to that preservation of history?
Sure, it's an oral history foundation. So what I do is I contact people and interview them directly about their lives before, during, and after football, be it prominent players, prominent coaches. And that gives us insight not only to the history of the game itself, but also the personal history, how contracts have grown from Frank Gifford getting a $250 signing bonus when he was signed as a first round draft pick to rookies now getting millions of dollars in their contracts. So it covers that at a very personal level and preserves that history because a lot of people see athletes for 3 hours on television and the glory and everything else, but that's only 3 hours of their lives, and it's
Yeah.
only for a short period of their lives.
Absolutely. And of course, as we know, there's a huge emotional impact when it comes to sports stars and heroes, as they're known. But Jackson, I want to thank you so much for joining me on the program and highlighting a little bit more about the space. Hopefully we'll touch base again down the track because, sport is sport and people want to talk about it. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. I'd love to be on again, and I'm always here to talk sports and how the business of the game keeps growing.
Good stuff.